So hi everyone, I'm Katie. I am one of the outdoor classroom coordinators. So I'm pretty new to Chewonki, but have done the last 5 years I've been working with the Appalachian Mountain Club, also doing outdoor education. A little bit different than Chewonki, but still very similar mission and just getting kids outdoors, which is one of my passions. My coworker Tanner and Keith, who I know that you've been working with, are both, Keith has been a long time Chewonki employee and has been around for a long time. So us three working together to make this experience wonderful for you guys. So that's a little bit about Chewonki, and I'm going to go into a little bit more. So first thing is that I'm a part of that educational partnership. So we are reaching out to your schools to get your students to Chewonki. So we are reaching outside of that. We also have a traveling natural history program, and that's what I've mostly encountered with, but it's when we're taking animals, owls, anything like that out to different schools. So giving them a different experience rather than them coming to Chewonki. We're having Chewonki come to them. Chewonki's been around since 1915. So they were originally a boys' summer camp, and so we do a lot of stuff in the summer time as well. Wilderness trips, there's now a girls' camp. So really cool stuff that Chewonki's doing, not only in the summer, but during the school year. And Chewonki now has a couple schools that we were talking about. So they have an elementary school, 3rd through 8th grade, and a semester program where juniors in high school get to spend their time at Chewonki. So when your students are here, they might see some of those semester students or other students, but most of the time they're going to be a little bit farther away at their campsite and just interacting with each other in their groups and in their teams. But if they're in the main town, is what we call it, is when they would be seeing maybe some other students and other people around. Chewonki, its mission is all about trying to inspire the individual growth of the students. So kind of getting them out of their comfort zones and having them try and do different things. So we inspire individual growth. We also want to foster that stewardship of the natural world. So really getting them out in nature, really appreciating nature. And then we also are trying to build these thriving communities. So not only are we trying to having individual success and growth, but how do they work together as a team? How do they work together to really strengthen and build their community so they can bring their experience at Chewonki back to the classroom and back to their families and community here?
And that's especially huge because all these kids are going, not all of them, but a lot of them are going on to the middle school, where here in upper elementary, they're in 3 different classrooms, but in middle school, they all come together in a larger community.
Yeah. And so hopefully a lot of these experiences that they have will kind of help them in that transition and really bring those different experiences to light so they can try to foster more of that community. Wonderful. So Chewonki is actually kind of like a left hand kind of going out, a really cool point out in Maine. So it took me 3 hours today, of course going through Boston traffic, taking 3 hours to kind of get from Chewonki Point down here to your school at Inly. And it's a pretty nice drive, just right on 95. But when you get into kind of Chewonki Neck, you're going to be driving through all these tall white pines. You're going to really feel like you're kind of out there a little ways in Maine, not close to a city or a lot of towns. And once we get out here, we have actually 11 campsites that are all along the point. I like to point out that we have Pinky Campsite that's kind of right on the pinky finger here, and then a bunch of others that are kind of all surrounding and have beautiful views of the waterfront. So those are where the kids will be staying. And then our town, kind of right here, is kind of where our hub is. So that's where our semester program lives, and kind of where our indoor classroom is what we call it, sits. And that's where you guys will first be joining us before venturing out through our lovely trail system to the campsites. Now, something that is really important to Chewonki is this right here. I like to take some time to really talk about these 3 points because this is all about this challenge by choice kind of mentality that we have at Chewonki. So we have these 3 zones. The comfort zone is obviously right now we're pretty comfortable sitting in seats. Usually I like to be at my house watching a movie, somewhere where you're comfortable. You're not really learning a lot, but you feel safe. The challenge zone is kind of having a little bit more risk involved, getting the kids out of their comfort zones a little bit, and then really trying to focus on that learning. So challenging them, having them really learn something new. And then this is something we don't want the kids to be in, which is the panic zone. So this is maybe something is way too extreme or way too rough for them, and they just feel like they're panicking, that they're taking on too much risk. And so our educators will be giving the students these tools to really help kind of gauge where they are. Every individual is going to have a different comfort zone and a different panic zone. For example, driving through Boston, some people are totally comfortable doing that. And I was definitely in a little bit of a panic zone, like going through traffic, not used to all those people driving around. And some people feel the same way about being in the woods. Although it seems like some of the students have definitely had some time and had some different experiences in the woods. Some kids are going to be more comfortable camping outside, being in those elements, and some people are going to be maybe a little more in that panic zone. And so we're going to hopefully give them these tools so that students feel comfortable really saying, hey, I'm a little bit in my panic zone right now. Like, what can I do to feel more comfortable? What can we do as a group to like help calm my nerves so I don't feel so homesick, or I don't feel so overwhelmed trying to cook food for all my teammates. And really what we're focusing on is these two. So being in our comfort zone and being in our challenge zone. So right on that line, if they were in the challenge zone the entire time of the program, they'd be a little bit exhausted at the end, which they will be anyways. But we kind of want to go back and forth so they have some comfort, have some break time, are really taking that time to reflect and learn and reflect on what they've been learning about. And then kind of going back into some of those challenges and really pushing them a little bit more to really learn about themselves, about their group and their team, and maybe some new fun facts, especially about map and compass, so they feel like they're really succeeding in taking something away from their experience here. So I usually like to do a little example of how we use our challenge zones. So do you guys mind participating in a little? Okay, so I have some scenarios basically, and if you feel like you're in your comfort zone during the scenario, just stay seated. If you feel like you might be in the challenge zone a little bit, like you're a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not too bad, stand up. And if you feel like, oh my gosh, you're panicking, stand up with your hands up. Like, I'm out of here. Sound good? So the first one I like to do is imagine that you are starting your day and all of a sudden on the news there is a newscaster that says there's no more coffee. Coffee is gone. It's not going to be brought back to the United States. What would happen? Where are you in the zone? None of you coffee fans? No one likes coffee? No one drinks coffee? See, okay. I know, I'm fine without coffee too. Okay, all good. Yeah. What about this one? You can sit down now, you're great. What about this? A huge storm hits, all the power goes out, and we are out, and there's no internet, and there's no way to turn it back on. How would you guys feel about no internet? Everyone comfortable? Okay. What happens if there's now zombies that are roaming the streets?
Then I'd be challenged.
Right? Nice. Yeah. And so, usually, and especially if they're students, we usually talk about, showering. We don't have showers at Chewonki. So how would you guys feel about being without showers for a week? Right? Maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone.
A lot.
cooking food over a fire. I don't know if these kids, right, have really cooked meals for themselves yet. That might be a little bit more of a challenge for them, being away from home, sleeping in a tent outside, being in the elements, right, in the rain. They might be cold, a little bit cold at night. So all those things might be happening, and it's kind of really figuring out individuals, how they're feeling, and how we can help them feel more comfortable and feel like they're challenged, but they're not panicking when they're doing new activities and experiencing new things. So we have an awesome team of educators that is going to help mitigate all those wonderful challenges for the students here. So Keith here, he's awesome. He's been around. We have a couple really awesome educators from last year that are sticking around, some really awesome returners, and we have some new staff as well. And so these educators are really highly trained, wonderful humans that just love getting kids outdoors. That is their passion. They wouldn't be doing this work if they didn't love that. They are also all trained in wilderness medicine. So even though we are pretty close to a hospital and pretty close to the town in Wiscasset, they still all get their wilderness first responder certification, which just means that if you were 2 hours away from help in the woods, they would be able to help you and stay with you and make sure that you were okay before we could get help and get you to the hospital. So you would never probably have to wait that long on our program, but these guys are highly trained individuals. We also have 2 or 3 nurses on staff that help out with the summer camp, but also the school programs, and they're always on site as well. And so that's usually when all of our health forms come. They go to Angie, our nurse first, and then to our educators. So we are all familiar with any sort of medications, allergies, anything that's going on with the kiddos. Our educators, like I said, are just full of energy usually. They have wonderful stories. I know last year they were saying some constellations and really getting those kids outside and learning about those natural worlds. A lot of them, have funny jokes, have stories, and all of them have tons of games and activities to help you guys learn, a very hands-on way of learning. And all of them love to be outside. So usually these are the type of folks that will spend all week camping out with kids, and then on their weekend will put a canoe on their car and go out and go on their own adventure for their weekend. I know that's something I like to do, be out in the woods all week and then still go out in the woods. So they really, really enjoy doing that and have a lot of really cool outdoor skills that they're excited to teach the students. So when your students first arrive, usually they're actually probably going to be greeted by me because I'm here welcoming you guys. So I'm going to come out on the bus, welcome everybody. I usually come around with a contraband bucket for all the cell phones and things that they don't need on their trip, maybe extra snacks that they don't need. And so I'm going to be doing that, telling you guys the kids the next steps, where the restrooms are, and then they're going to be going kind of on a tour of Chewonki. So there's going to be someone taking them on a tour, which will be great because our educators and whoever is going to be the chaperones are all going to meet up and kind of just go over those goals again, what we want the students to get out of the program, success, any changes with health forms or anything like that, kind of going over those logistics, and then just meeting each other, getting comfortable with the educator and the chaperone, getting to know each other because they're going to be strong partners to make this a really fun and successful program.
And I have to say, it's like probably 3 times a day you check in with the educator just to kind of go over how things have been going with the kids.
Yeah.
Anything to look out for.
Definitely. Those check-ins are super important, and having that communication is super important. And then, of course, there's always people on support. So even though there's 2 adults out in the woods with them, me and Tanner and Keith will always be around kind of helping in the background if anything should go wrong, or there's a can opener that was missing, or, something that needed to be done. We're kind of running around the background. And also to kind of go back into that community building, the first thing we do is actually, doesn't matter if it's your backpack or somebody else's, we get everybody's gear off the bus. And we start getting into that group mentality of kind of group before self a little bit. The first challenge is going to be kind of getting all their bags out here, but also, and then like I said, a little tour. Oh, chaperone talk. See, I missed all the slides, but these are all things I talked about already. Boop. Here we go. Their first big challenge is going to be getting all of their gear, especially their group gear, out to the campsites. So it's about a 20-minute walk sometimes out to these campsites that are along the point. And they're going to be carrying some heavy things, it looks like, right? So they're going to be working together as a team to get all their gear and their personal gear out to their campsites. So here we have our wanigan. So it's kind of like a big wooden box that's going to be filled with all their cooking gear, so things to cook over the fire with. We have their Duluth here, so these are things going to be carrying tools, kind of their saws and axes, because they're going to be actually prepping all their own firewood to cook over the campfire with. So they're going to be doing all their own meals. And then we have their pickle bucket. So this is just filled with not pickles, but their food. So they usually just keep kind of 1 day's worth of food in the pickle bucket, and then they get the rest of their food throughout the week. So one at a time, and this way it's nice and secure, so no microbeers or little critters can really get into their food. And so we ask that the kids don't actually bring their own snacks in. We're going to have plenty of snacks, plenty of food that the educators pack for, but this way there's not strays in their tents where they might be getting critters in their tents, but everything's secure, everything's in one place for them. Yay! And then they get all their personal gear, everything out to their campsite. So a big deal, really. A lot of stuff on their packs maybe, a lot of tents that they actually have to bring out there too. And so just a lot of gear. And so their first challenge is, it could feel like an individual thing, but really they're going to be working together to help support each other to really get out there and set their campsite up.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to they learn how to communicate with each other and know their limits, and when they need to kind of let go of something, let someone else help out.
Yeah.
It can take 20 minutes. Sometimes it takes longer depending on how the group is working together. But
So the first day really is just focused on setting up camp, getting their stuff to camp, and how they're feeling in their camp cruise. Yeah. Correct.
And sometimes we take over part of the load.
Oh, I worried that Gabriel would never say anything, like he would just try to push himself to get there.
Oh, they all end up saying something.
All right.
Yeah. All good. Yep. And so it's just talking to them, and I think the educators really do set a great example right at the beginning when they're in their groups, to be like, okay, yeah, it's great to push through and to be strong, and it sometimes is a mental thing rather than a physical thing, but if you really are feeling tired, we'll all help each other out.
All right, and the good thing is, compared to 4 or 5 years ago, when these kids were not, we didn't teach them how to pack well, their backpacks are packed much better now. And they have backpacks. Sometimes kids were bringing suitcases and trash bags, and that was a mess.
That was a mess.
Yeah.
That sounds like a mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are our beautiful campsites here. We actually have tent platforms now at all of our sites, and that just helps be a little bit more off the ground. You feel a little bit safer. You can actually put your backpacks underneath the tent platforms so they won't get wet and they won't kind of be in the way. You won't have to be sleeping with them, cuddling with them at night. So really cool little tent platforms in these beautiful little places overlooking the ocean.
Do those tents connect onto the platforms? I mean, could one roll off and
They
have
have
the
a
whole
way-
tent topple over?
No, they have ways that they can connect them, and some of them even have strings here where they're going to be connecting it to some of the nearby trees to kind of keep that tent, the fly off. So yeah, they secure them down, and with stuff inside of them, they won't really blow away. Yeah.
well, I wasn't talking about blowing away, but like if someone rolled over, the weight would be enough of a person rolling over to pull the
No.
tent over.
I've never had that happen. Yeah.
I mean, there are at least 6 ties around the tent, and yeah, and the thing is, there's also 2 to 3 other kids in the tent, so they're gonna counterbalance any weight like that anyway.
Yeah, I've never had anyone fall off the tent platforms. If anything, yeah, if you just set it up and didn't tie it down yet, like I said, a wind might blow the tent over, but not with the kids in it.
And basically what happens is when you get into that tight part of the corner of the tent, that kind of creates this force that's going to keep you from rolling any further anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, rather than pushing the whole tent one way, you're kind of just like caught within the tent. Again, another challenge, group challenge, is going to be having the teams kind of set up their own tents. So these tents are Eurekas, and they can fit 3 to 4. 4 kind of as the max number of students, 3, and we usually do it by gender. And so it's pretty great that they get to set up their own tents and feel really confident in this new skill that they're having. All tents are a little different, and so they'll feel really like they did a lot of good work when they set up their tent and finally get to get inside. Yay! Yeah, you can kind of see where they're all kind of tied down on different sides of it too. Something new at Chewonki, but I know last year they had this, is the privies. So before, for the past I think it was 47 years, we had the kids actually have to go into the woods to go to the bathroom, and making sure that they're going far enough away, that they're not seeing anybody around, all sorts of things. And the soil isn't that great along the island anyways, that we have these new privy setups. So these are super nice. They're going to be at all the campsites. We have a few campsites that don't have them fully set up yet, but there's going to be some sort of privy, some sort of bathroom at them, which is really nice. So all of this goes into a hole in the ground. There's set up just like a normal restroom, just no flushing. And then after every encampment, basically, our field team actually takes the waste and puts it into our composting. We have a composting waste bin. So it just wasn't feasible to do composting toilets at every one of our sites, but it will actually all get composted and turned into dirt, which is a really cool system. And Clivis is a really awesome company that is actually here from Massachusetts. But in here there's also a bin and place to put any sort of feminine hygiene products if that happens to come up. So there's no need to feel awkward or uncomfortable having to go to the bathroom in the woods anymore. This is a great option. We will give the kids a choice if they want to still use the restroom out in the woods, and we'll teach them how far away to go and all that. But I feel, especially at night and different things, they're mostly going to be choosing this option here.
It's amazing how many of them go in the middle of the night too, and they go with a buddy.
Yeah.
They can never leave the tent without, and they kind of tell us that they're going. But I just remember every time, 2 in the morning, all of a sudden these kids are going off and into the darkness to go to the bathroom, and they're not afraid to do it.
Well, and it's so funny, when I first was going camping too, that was a thing, in my house I never have to use the restroom in the middle of the night, but for some reason when I'm camping, I don't know if it's you're a little bit colder or what, I'm more, I don't know, in tuned, or maybe you drank water right before bed, and I always have to go in the middle of the night. But yeah, there are actually going to be reflectors that kind of go out towards the privies, and then we do ask that the students, we have a whole protocol where they leave a little flashlight, their French flashlight, at their tent, so they know which tent to go back to. Maybe in the middle of the night it might be a little confusing and disorienting, but that way they have a light at their tent, and then they'll be able to see the reflectors to the privy. Yeah.
And I know when I'm there, I barely sleep. I'm awake at any moment there's movement, and I just don't sleep anyway.
Oh no.
This is fine with me. Last year I slept in a hammock. I just brought my own hammock and put it between 2 trees, and it was beautiful.
That's nice.
Yeah.
When there's good weather, that's really nice to do.
And the mosquitoes haven't been really that bad there, so.
That's good. That's good. So we also have a Chewonki way, a safe way for cutting and splitting wood, whether it's a large piece with an axe, usually a lot of the smaller pieces you can just cut with a saw. As you can see, we have lots of safety equipment, whether it's the eyeglasses or the gloves, so different ways that we're going to be safe chopping our own wood. A lot of the campsites, there's just a lot of down trees on our property and a lot of stuff, so it's kind of good to kind of clear that away, and also makes them feel really just a part of the group when this is one of their group chores, that they have to actually collect the firewood. And it's always good to collect a little more, especially if you want a nice fire at night. We also collect ocean water, so salt water, for actually cleaning our dishes. So this is something that we do. We are still using soap. We still boil water, so at the end we'll actually sanitize everything even after we clean it, so that we have either a bleach solution or a boiling water to really sanitize things, and then having them dry outside. We also, even though we're not showering, cleanliness is super important, especially when we're all cooking together. We're all, chopping wood, we're getting dirty together. We want to make sure we always have clean hands before we do anything, and that we're always washing our hands after the restroom, always, being as cleanly as possible. So really important, and something we push on the kids to really wash their hands and be clean. Yay! We've also gotten away from kind of doing one-pot meals. It's really exciting that the kids get a chance to really cook their own food, kind of following a recipe and following some of our directions, which is nice, and it's going to be nice and over a fire. And so I love one-pot meals, where I can just put my mac and cheese and all my veggies and everything I like in one pot. But because of food allergies, because of just student preferences in general, they don't always like to mix everything. I was one of those kids that had to have everything separate when I was growing up. My peas could not touch my mac and cheese, and they couldn't touch this, and I had to eat everything separate, and now I don't care, and I put everything in a pot. But so we make sure that we are using lots of separate pots, lots of separate pans to really cook everything separate, so that kids can choose what they want, and also so that we are making sure that if anyone has food allergies, that nothing's going to be contaminated and cross-touching. And then we have some of the fun things that we're going to be learning about during their time at Chewonki. And one of those big things we were just talking about, me and Bruce, is map and compass. So they're going to be getting a nice map and compass lesson, kind of learning the basics, getting used to using a compass, taking a bearing, walking a bearing, and then also using the map with it. And then kind of as a final group challenge is going to be kind of going from one camp to the other, getting to a certain point and meeting together as a whole group, which is going to be really fun. They're also going to be able to work on the farm, so doing a farm chore. So farm chores could be anything from, as you see up here, milking the cows, feeding the chickens, or collecting the eggs. It could be weeding or harvesting something, depending on the time of the year. So they usually have a lot of lists of chores that they do every day, and so having the kids work on the farm, this is usually one of their favorite times. And it's really helpful to have extra hands on the farm, so the farm crew always loves it.
And I think it's a nice break for them too, from doing all the other stuff that's in the woods, and then they just go out to the farm and get close to the animals. And,
yeah. Bob the horse, we have our own a horse that helps around on the farm.
I think 2 years ago that we were there when the calf was born. And
yeah, I was just telling Amanda that someone that walked me in, that the lambs are starting to be born right now, and they have a lamb cam, I guess, that I haven't checked out at Chewonki. But yeah, and a lot of the semester students are just like, if I can be there and like hold a baby lamb, that would like make my experience. So again, it kind of depends on what time of year it is, when you guys arrive, what's going on. But there's some exciting things that are happening at the farm. And then just a lot of great bonding around the campfire, telling stories about the day, getting to know each other a little bit differently. Always a really fun time. Of course, marshmallows and sunsets and stars. So just being out in nature is a very awesome bonding experience for the kids. Then on the last day, it's kind of the reverse of the first day, where they're going to be now packing up and putting away all their gear, as you can see here. A little bit of a mess, but getting everything together now and figuring out the best way that now that they know how to get all their stuff to their campsite, the best way to get everything back out of their campsite, leaving no trace in the woods, and making it nice so that the next student group that comes out there isn't going to be seeing, you know, pieces of trash or something like that that's going to be out and around. They also bring all of their camping equipment, like I said, to pack out here where they re-wash and clean all of their dishes. So this is like the final clean, and this is kind of getting the soot off the bottom and different things from using it over the fire. Keith was telling me this is his favorite time to go meet the students, because this is usually when they're like reminiscing about their like hardships and like fun experiences throughout their week or couple of days at Chewonki. And so even though it's kind of a last hurrah, it's also like a really great place to like hear funny stories and giggles and laughs and really get to know how their experience was. Yeah, all their city bubbles and soot make a fun combination. We also make sure that they reflect on their week, and throughout the whole week they're going to have time to reflect, maybe write in journals and have some quiet sit spots, but right before they leave we really focus on that transference of, like I was talking about before, taking what they learned here and really bringing it back to their community, to their school. And so they get to write a letter to themselves at the end of the trip that they'll then get later in the year. That's just going to be about their experience and what changed them maybe, or what they learned about themselves. And their instructors will get to write a little note about them as well. So they'll get to have that at the end.
And usually the way it times is that since they're doing this in the 6th grade, they get these letters when they're in middle school.
Oh, funny.
Oh, that's so nice. Now, I did want to talk a little bit more about safety and some of the risks. So there are different risks, of course. With any outdoor experience, you can't eliminate risk, but we do try to manage these risks. So I'm going to go through a couple of these. The first one, which is a big one, is ticks. So you guys probably all have ticks here. We do have ticks up at Chewonki, especially now that spring's coming around. They're probably all starting to come out. And so we make sure that kids, anytime they use the restroom, that they're doing a tick check. Usually, if they're doing that every time they're going to the restroom and they find one, boom, they can just swipe it off, everything's fine. But if they do happen to find one that is embedded, that's when they would go to their instructor. Their instructor would then be able to remove it. Usually we keep it just in case, in order to identify it, and just making sure next steps, and that people are notified if their kid had a tick. So we take this very seriously. A lot of ticks can cause diseases or carry diseases and can cause some pretty nasty things. I have a lot of friends in the outdoor industry that have gotten Lyme disease and different things from ticks, and so we want to make sure that the kids are checking and making sure they know how to identify one. The next one is, I don't know if have you guys heard of brown tail caterpillars?
We don't have them down here.
Yeah, they're not down here. They're not up in northern Maine either. I was coming from Greenville, had never heard of them before, but Chewonki has them. They're an invasive caterpillar from Europe, but they give you this itchy rash. So if you touch this caterpillar, like their little hairs go into you, and then you just itch and itch and itch. And we have a lot of them on Chewonki next. So we make sure kids know not to touch caterpillars. Usually beginning of spring, they're not too bad. Middle of summer, we might be seeing a lot more of them around. And so we just make sure that if they do get the rash, there are certain creams that can help. I've heard cold water, different things that we can do. And then, of course, you guys would be notified if your kid does get a rash from these caterpillars. So we're trying to mitigate them holding, touching, and collecting these caterpillars that will make them very itchy.
I mean, it's never been a problem.
Good.
When we were there. I mean, you'd see them, they might be on your pants, you get a piece of wood, flick it off.
Yeah.
That's it, but no one's really gotten a
Rash.
they might have gotten a little tiny thing.
Yeah. Again, once you know what they are and you can identify them, it's kind of just like, just avoid them. Not a big deal. The other thing is the sun. So making sure that they either have sunscreen, hat, something to protect them from the sun. Drinking enough water during the day. So we want to make sure they have a nice sturdy water bottle so that they're drinking enough water, being outside all day.
I think water tends to be the biggest thing for kids that just aren't used to taking care of themselves that way, especially when they're exerting themselves a lot, and they just don't realize how much water they need. So we're reminding them to constantly drink. Yeah,
and that's a good thing. It's a good thing to have those reminders. Also, yeah, because we're bringing fresh water in so that the kids, know to refill their water bottles and not forget their water bottles different places. I'm terrible at it. I'll leave my water bottle somewhere and go off and be like, oh no. So just, constantly reminding them about it. Even though hopefully it won't be snowing during the trip, it can get still kind of chilly at night. And so just making sure, and I'm going to be going over the pack and some of the stuff that the kids should bring. Just making sure maybe you have a hat or some gloves or some sort of warm layers. So if it is night and you are a little chilly, they're able to throw on some warm layers and feel nice. It's better to have more layers to put on. And kind of you're able to delayer when you get warm than not having enough of those warm layers and being a little bit uncomfortable and chilly. Yeah. And to the packing list. So you guys will be getting a list of all the things that you will need, and that's kind of the minimum, right? So we're giving you a list, and these are like the minimum things that the kids should bring. If they, want to bring something like a comfortable item, their special blanket or something, they can, but we try to minimize that just because they are going to be carrying all their stuff on their pack. So we like that the kids and the adults kind of can come together and pack their own pack. But one of the things we definitely want the kids to bring is actually 2 sets of shoes. And the reason is, if it does get rainy and muddy, which it sounds like it was a beautiful time on your trip last year, but it still is always good that even if you're hiking in these boots all day, that you have something at camp that you can put on that's a different shoe. So again, it's going to be closed-toed. If it's, you bring 2 sets of sneakers, just one's going to be, your sneaker that you can slip on really easily at your campsite versus your boot that you're going to be wearing around. We usually have like maybe one waterproof boot, like I said, or something that you don't mind getting wet during the day, and then a boot that's going to be dry and nice for when you're at camp, so you can be nice and comfortable. Just always good to switch out.
I would recommend like waterproof hiking boots.
Yeah.
And those boots right there
No.
are not great for walking around in. So.
Although I am right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely just some waterproof hiking boots are fine. And then sneakers are something more comfortable for when they're at camp. The next is like a hard plastic water bottle, kind of like what we were talking about. Usually a couple liters are good. And again, something like hard plastic so that if they do drop it a lot, it's not going to crumble like a lot of the just plastic water bottles. If you were to use just a plastic water bottle, I would recommend like a Powerade bottle or a Gatorade because they're like a little bit sturdier. You aren't able to like crinkle them or anything. And then I also like that these have the cap, that you can't lose the cap, because that's another thing too that kids will do is actually just take their lid off and then lose it, and then now their water bottle is pretty useless. They can't put it back into their backpack because it'll get them all wet. So something that has attachments always a little bit nicer. Of course, not needed, but is helpful. Medications. So we want to make sure that if the students are taking any medications for school or at home, that they are also taking them at Chewonki. So we don't want to, this might be a new experience for them, and we don't want to be messing with those medications or taking them away when they should be taking them. Because they're already going to be maybe a little bit out of their comfort zones. So making sure that if there is any medications that they take, that it's written down on the health forms and that they're actually in the bottles that they come in. A lot of times I see it, especially with my mom. She always takes maybe like Advil or ibuprofen, and you see it in the baggies. So like they look like little Skittle bags. We can't take any medications or give out medication like that. So we want to make sure that they're in the bottles that they're prescribed in, and that it's written down on the health form so that we know what they're going to be taking.
And Ryan and Jay coordinate all of that. So all of that comes
Nice.
here, and then our nurses
Perfect.
put it all together.
Awesome. Yep. And then our nurses probably get it and check everything, and then our educators are getting it, so they're able to hand it out. And of course, if there's any medications that the kids don't want to be known that they're taking, maybe in the mornings or in the afternoons, we can make that really discreet as well. And if that's just written on the health form, that way our educators know. They're pretty good about giving out the medications and not making it a big show or something like that. So it's very discreet, and we just want to make sure everyone's getting what they need, even when they're out in the woods. The next is the rain gear. So we do recommend that you get a rain jacket and rain pants. I mean, again, it's going to be this outer layer. It's going to keep you warmer if you are warm. If it's windy, it's good to have a rain layer. And even if it's not raining when you're directly outside, maybe it rained at night or the night before, having rain pants can be really nice, because then you can sit on the ground or sit anywhere and not worry about your pants getting wet. So again, it all depends on what the weather is going to be looking like, but it's never a bad idea to bring them. I like to say if I don't bring my rain gear, I always can count on it probably raining. If I have my rain gear with me, it's usually when it's beautiful out and I don't actually need it. So.
And I think the other thing that we've learned to tell the kids is when they pack, put their clothes in separate plastic bags or whatever, because you don't know, it could be a rainy pack in,
Mm-hmm.
and all their stuff could get wet on the way there, and then that happened 1 year, 6 years ago, and
No.
one child, all his stuff was
Which
just
is
packed on top of his backpack where the water was getting in. And so since then we're recommending that they use plastic bags to wrap their clothes in.
Nice, yeah.
Or even their sleeping bag, if they can do that, just to make sure so they have everything dry.
Everything double bagged, yeah. No, that's very smart. And then a couple things that we asked that you leave home are the cell phones, any sort of electronic, and just extra snacks. Again, we're going to try to be healthier. We have a bunch of snacks. The educators do usually a good job of packing all that, and we're going to make sure this year too that they're packing extra snacks. And the cell phones are just, if the kids do want to take pictures, they can bring kind of their own cameras. And I know this year, I think our marketing team is going to give some of our educators cameras. So if your school wanted pictures, we could help get pictures back to you guys.
And
Which is
Jesse
good
and I will
too.
be taking pictures too.
Nice.
And they won't be bringing any phones anyway. There shouldn't be any phones on the bus or.
Okay.
So
Good. Sounds great.
they might have some kind of audio device, but that's.
Okay. Yep.
Did
For
you
music
say that
and
you're
stuff.
going with Jesse?
Yeah. And then the way it'll work out at camp is that whatever camp I'm at, then we'll have a female educator there, and whatever camp Jesse's at will be a male educator. So
Nice.
have that balance.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah, that always sounds good. Awesome. So yeah, and again about this backpack, we'll kind of go through how the easiest way to kind of pack this thing. But we do want to make sure that there are some straps, and a little bit hardier straps than just like maybe those thin straps that are on some like little backpacks. Having the waist strap is always helpful. It just kind of gets the weight again off the shoulders and onto the waist. But as long as it's a large enough backpack that can kind of fit everything and they're comfortable carrying.
I'd say usually theirs are not as big as that one.
Yeah. This one just has, this is like adult size. But definitely anything kind of with comfortable straps, waist and shoulder straps is going to be nice. And making sure that you pack it a few times and try it on first. It's always good to kind of walk around and feel it out so that they know if they need to take anything out or not. Sleeping pad is super important. So this is going to get you off the ground or off the platform a little bit, so making it a little bit more comfortable and also creating a warmth layer. So this is really going to keep you warm off the ground so that, cold air coming up and underneath the platform, this is going to protect you from that. Some of them are blow-up ones that are a little bit foamier and nicer. These are pretty standard. Some of them are a little thicker. I've found that now that I'm a little bit older that I like the blow-up ones a little bit more. But when you're starting out, it's always good to these are a little bit cheaper, the Thermarest ones, and it's just something to help protect them from the
They're a
ground.
whole lot cheaper.
Huh?
I said they're a whole lot cheaper than
Yeah,
some of the blow-up ones.
definitely.
Because they can range, I think, from $20 to $200, depending on what you're getting. So.
Because some of like the ultra light ones,
Yeah.
but then they like are super comfortable, and yeah, there's all sorts of ranges of them. So normally when you pack your pack, if you can see mine too, we talked about the individual. I also like to line my backpack with just a trash bag. You don't have to get fancy. There's like fancy pack liners. Just putting a trash bag in your pack first is going to help out. And then if you do individually like still pack clothes for the day, everything will then be like almost doubly dry, which is really nice. Some backpacks even have like a pack cover that's supposed to protect from the rain. It helps a little bit like on the surface level, but usually your pack's still gonna get wet, even if you have that. So just lining it anyways is a good idea. Besides having the big backpack, it is really nice to carry a little one with you. So this could be like a little drawstring bag or a little backpack like this, just for water, snacks, and maybe some dry, if you need your raincoat in here, or maybe you get hot during the day and you want somewhere to put your jacket, it can go right into a nice little backpack. Rain gear is something I always keep on top. Again, it kind of makes a nice little windbreaker. If you do get cold, it can still be a nice layer, and that way it's right there if you know it's going to rain. So this is something, of course, if the forecast is beautiful and sunny, this probably wouldn't be on the top of my backpack, but if there's any chance of rain, it's always good to keep right at the top and even in your little backpack so that you have that. So again, the rain jacket and rain pants. I like having, so individual bags you can also do for like each set of clothes so you know what's in there. Oh, there's one pair of socks in this bag and you don't have to go rumbling through the whole thing. Also having like a little bag for toiletries and stuff. This one here I have my hat and gloves in. So again, bringing those kind of warm layers just in case. Especially for the mornings. Usually getting up, it can be a little chillier in the morning. That's one of the coldest parts of the day. So if you have to get up and be the first one up cooking or doing something, just having those gloves will make a huge difference. Also having a little spot for a flashlight. So a little flashlight like this is perfect. Hey! And if you have like a headlamp, is always nicer, but any sort of flashlight they have. And then some extra batteries as well, just in case.
The headlamps are good just because your hands are free.
Free, yep. Exactly. And then usually with the string you can kind of hang it up inside too or something like that. So headlamps are nice.
There have been some kids that brought some fancy blow-up lights that can hang from their tents. Or some kind of LED.
Yeah, and I've seen those too. They're like solar too. Like if you hang them outside, or put them outside all day, they'll like take in the solar light, and then you can just blow them up, and they all light up. They're pretty neat. Oh, here we go. So I kind of like to make it so we have like a little person here. So our first layers that we're going to talk about are going to be our base layers. So again, those were kind of on the top of our bag. Thank you. So our base layers are kind of like what some older folks would call long underwear, and younger folks would maybe call these pajamas. So again, kind of a nice layer. We usually don't like cotton because it's not going to keep you, it's going to keep you warm when it's dry, but if you're sweaty or it gets wet at all, it won't hold the heat in. So you'll actually it'll take away some of your heat. So anything that's fleece, or like I said, any kind of polyester, which is normally what our pajamas are made of, are really nice. So having kind of a nice undershirt, of course that won't fit me, and maybe some nice pajama pants or something really nice. This way, these are nice to sleep in, but also again, if you're getting up in the morning, it's a little bit chillier, you can just put your pants on right over these things to keep you nice and warm. And then maybe as it warms up throughout your morning, you can go back in your tent, take off your long underwear, and just put your pants back on and be a little bit cooler. So layers. Also, having a nice fleece layer. So something that's really nice to kind of go right up and over so that you stay nice and warm. And on top of that, if you bring a vest or something else that'll keep your core warm, again, this way, okay, you're getting a little warmer, just keep your vest on. Something that's going to keep your core warm is going to be really, really nice for you. That fleece is going to really protect you from the wind and elements. And then I know there was one more in here as well. There it is. Haha. And then a hoodie. So again, if you had all three of these layers on, wow, you would be, and then the rain jacket on top, you'd be ready for a winter storm. But again, if you have all these things separate, you're going to be a little bit cooler. You're going to feel a little more comfortable. Again, a lot of kids have like sweatshirts that are made of cotton, which is fine. Just remembering that if it does get wet, it won't dry as easily. It might be a little bit cooler. So just a little zip up like this with a hood would be perfect. Having that fleece, maybe you would have all three of these things on at night if you're a little cooler. I'm not a big, vest fan because usually it's my arms that get cold and not my core. I'm like the opposite. I need like sleeves instead of like the opposite of a vest. But the vest is really great for keeping the core warm. But just having a couple of these layers is going to be really nice in the mornings and also when going to bed, having these extra layers. So, perfect. Lots of fun layers, a lot of the fleece, polyester. I also like to think of like sports materials, so sports shorts or sports tops, because again, if they're going to be really active and outdoors, they're going to dry really fast, especially if they're sweating or if they happen to get a little bit wet from like getting dishwater ready or cooking or something like that. Any sort of water is going to dry really fast from these types of materials.
But they won't be wearing shorts there.
That's
They
true.
require pants.
Yeah.
So maybe a hiking pant, but not jeans.
Yeah.
Because jeans are cotton. But there's some good.
I was
hiking
thinking,
pants
yeah,
out
like
there.
sports, like even sports sweats pants
Yeah.
sometimes are nice because then they'll dry really fast and feel more comfortable if you don't have the hiking pants.
Yeah. And even just wearing the rain pants sometimes is enough.
Mhm. Cool. And then the last thing actually at the bottom of my pack, because this I won't need until, we usually when we get to camp, this is really the last thing I need, is going to be the sleeping bag. So again, I have the sleeping bag in a couple different things. It's actually inside of a plastic bag, this trash bag first for the rainproof. And then the trash bag might end up ripping or something if I have this on the outside of my pack. So having like another layer, this is just like a little stuff sack, but anything to kind of, even if you just double layer it with some of these, that way if it does rip, there might be another layer in there. So
But most sleeping bags should come with a
yeah,
stuff sack.
little stuff sack. Yeah, so it's good to have both. Usually with the sleeping bags, we don't want something that, there are some sleeping bags that are just kind of made for the house. So, for slumber parties and stuff. So making sure it's an outdoor sleeping bag. Yeah, and so a lot of the LLB ones are outdoor sleeping bags. Some of them will actually say the ratings on them. So usually like a 30-degree bag means that if it's 30 degrees out, you are going to be really comfortable in this bag. And that's usually the case. There's like 20-degree, 15-degree bags that are for cooler nights, but a 30-degree bag should be fine.
And the other thing about the indoor bags is they tend to be really big and bulky, which
Mhm.
makes it hard to pack into a backpack.
Yeah.
So these can get down, they can get even smaller than that. So.
Mhm.
That was in your backpack?
Yes, it was.
Because most backpacks have a bottom section at the back for the sleeping bag
Mhm.
that you can sometimes, I don't know if that one does, but you can
No, it
unzip
doesn't.
from the bottom and just take the sleeping bag
Sleeping
right
bag
out.
out. Some of them do, yep. And some of them, I don't know if you saw, but the sleeping pad was on the outside, and sometimes the sleeping bag can kind of go up here and kind of get cinched down.
So
yeah.
another clothing thing is that sometimes we do go swimming there. They have to have a lifeguard on duty, but if the weather's right, and the water can be cold. One time it was warm, but a lot of times it's cold. But just to have a swimsuit just in case.
Ooh, yeah. I was trying to remember the date. And then socks is another big thing, which was in my yellow bag here. Yeah. So making sure, if like I said, if you do have a couple of different pairs of shoes, but one does get wet, right? That means your socks are going to get wet. So having extra pairs of socks is really important, especially if all you have is cotton. I really like wool socks, but again, most students probably won't have wool socks. Some might, but that's just going to help, again, dry out easier, keep your foot warmer. So just bring in extra pairs of socks, especially if we think it's going to be a little wet out. Always good to keep the feet clean and dry. Any questions? I don't think I'll try to see if I forgot anything, but any questions about gear or anything? Packing the backpack?
At one point earlier, not related here, but you said throughout the whole week, was that just a generic statement? They're just going
It's
2
just
nights,
3
right?
days.
Yeah, just 2 nights.
Typically, most schools go for 3 to 5
Yeah,
days.
it's usually Tuesday through Friday,
Yeah.
but you guys are doing the 3-day. Yeah.
And when you said that you bring fresh water in, does that mean, like, you guys aren't drinking ocean water that's boiled either?
Although I've had
Correct.
coffee salt water or coffee made from ocean water. That was interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nope, you're correct. Yeah, so we have fresh water that we're going to be carrying to the campsite kind of in jugs. And so that's part of the team effort, getting stuff out there and making sure that they have fresh water. Yeah.
And sometimes the next day we go and get some more water and bring it back. So there's always enough.
Yep.
And when you were talking about making sure people clean their hands after the restroom, is that like bins of ocean water that you guys go get, or what do you do?
Probably, yeah, there's going to be a station, probably. And we also have hand sanitizer as well. Yeah. But it's probably a combo. I don't know how much of the fresh water versus salt water they use for the hand washing station.
I think they use mostly salt water.
Water. But with soap.
Yeah. And then when they do the dishes, it's a mixture of water and a slight bit of bleach to make sure that, and it's salt water that they're using to wash the dishes.
Yeah.
And I think the other things that, like, they don't require it, but you can bring bug spray, but it has to be a pump or a lotion or something, not a more aerosol type thing. Same thing for sunscreen.
Yep, and especially with the bug spray, I know, as long as you're away from like the cooking area and the tent area, that way if people have sensitivities to it, they usually are good about that. But definitely, yeah, if you want to bring bug spray or sunscreen, those are definitely important items.
I don't think there's a single educator there that uses it.
Meh.
Yeah, that I've seen. They just,
Do they
the
make
bugs
sure the
don't bother
kids
them.
do though? Like my kid is white.
well, sunscreen.
Oh, yeah.
We make, but
Yeah.
bug,
Bug
there's
spray.
a preference for the
Okay.
bug.
Yeah, and some people like to put it just on their clothes and not on their bodies. I've seen that a lot, like on their hat, like if they have a hat, or like just on the bottoms of their pants or shirt. That way bugs don't get in them either. But that's always helpful, so it's not touching skin. But yeah, I don't think I use bug spray that much.
And I know there'll be some parents that have some allergy questions, but they're not here right now, so they can just contact you, contact the nurse.
As long as everything's written down in the health form, we're usually very, very accommodating, especially when we're making all of the meal preps. We know all of that in advance. And if there's something like really serious, we usually ask them to like either the parent to write down a list of things that the kids do eat and really like, so that we can try to accommodate that and make up a meal plan for them.
Yeah,
and
I know
then
in the past we've had kids that have lots of allergies, and Chewonki is very good at working with them, coming up with a plan that everyone felt comfortable with.
Exactly. Yep. So we'll make a plan. We'll send it back to the parents so then they see the plan. So we're working very closely with them because we want to make sure every kid is safe and has a really great time and gets well fed, because food is important.
And the teachers will have their phones to give nightly updates. They don't be on their phones all the time, but we might not be able to do it from the camp.
Mhm.
Sometimes we will go into town where there's a little bit more wireless and give you a nightly update on what's going on, maybe with a few pictures as well.
Great, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, every school's a little different on how they want to do that, if they want to contact parents or not. So as long as there's a system in place and then we know, it's great.
Yeah, it'll just be an email, we'll be calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Email, perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Any questions you have for the teachers or the school?
Sounds good.
Well, you have a couple months still to
Yeah.
think about.
And you
things.
guys will, you guys get to pick the groups, and I gave you that nice little form so you can fill that out. And then once you get the med forms and the photo release forms and things, you can start checking those off and send them all to us for our nurse and educators and me to kind of go through and make sure we have everything.
Well, thank you
Easy
so much.
peasy. Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited that your students are coming and kids are coming. So we are excited and ready for spring to be here.
I'm sure there's a bit of snow still there.
There is a little
Yeah.
bit. There is. Wonderful. Thank
But yeah,
you.
last year was just beautiful weather the entire time.